Hello everyone, this is Samar Pansal in front of you. So today I decided to teach you history first chapter from your SST, social science. So in the social science sessions I already complete first chapter in geography. So now I am moving towards the history. So let us see, the name of the first chapter which we are going to deal today is what, where, how and when. What, where, how and when. So first of all, history. When it comes to history, we have to think about the date or the what events happened at what time and where did it happen and how did it happen. So there are some things which we have to know while reading history. Okay, so history, actually studying history is important because it allows us to understand our past, which in turn allow us to understand our present also. So studying history can provide us with insight into our culture of origin as well as culture with which we might be less familiar, thereby increasing a cross-cultural awareness and understanding. It is history allowed us to know our past, what type of the people were there and what did they do. Everything we came to know about after reading history only. Okay, so long years ago, what happened? Okay, what people ate, what type of the clothes they wore, in what type of the house they used to live. So everything we will discuss after in this subject, history. So the first chapter is what, where, how and when. Means क्या, कहाँ, कैसे and कब. Okay, let us see. What can we know about the past? Okay, so here what can we know about the past? There are several things we can know about our past, such as what people used to eat, the type of clothes they used to wear, the house in which they used to live. And there are the people like hunter-gatherers, herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, priests, craftspersons, artisans, musicians and scientists. In our past also there are the people who used to do farming, who used to rule a kingdom or the territory, the person who used to build house. There were also merchants, there were also traders, there were also musicians and the scientists. And we also find out about the children's game. Okay, so what type of the game children used to play? The games children used to play, the story that they have heard and the song they sing. So this type of the thing we will know only if we learn history. So history took us in our ancient times. What type of the people were there? Okay, it allow us to know about our ancestor, the people of the ancient period. Okay, so where did people live? Actually, people used to live along the banks of river Narmada for the several and thousands years. At that time, in the previous time, the people used to they stayed on the river Narmada, the bank of river Narmada, as they knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surrounding forest. They used to collect roots, foods, and other forest produce for their survival. Sometimes they also used to hunt animal. Okay, they used to collect all the necessary items from the forest. Okay, so in ancient time, the areas along the Ganga and its tributary, the river, the south river, the south of the Ganga was also known as the Magadha, which is now lying in the state of Bihar. So men and the women moved in search of their livelihood and also to escape from the natural disaster like flood and droughts. The movements of the people enriched our culture and tradition. People shared new ways of carving stones, composing music, and even cooking food for the several hundred years ago. Okay, so there are some places where people first used to live. If you look at the map carefully, then you can see the people used to travel from one place to another. First of all, they used to stay in a plain. Sorry, they stayed in a jungle. After the passage of the time, they used to stay in a bank of a river. They used to do cultivation. They used to share the new style of carving stone, composing music. They even started cooking food. Okay, so how does it happen? If you find out, if you want to know the answer of this all question, you have to go through the history first. So they used to develop the agricultural practices. There were some place of areas where people used to do agriculture. The places where the rice was first grown are to the north of the Vindhyas. If you look here, you can see you can see Vindhyas. Okay, here in the middle of our country, in the center of our country, just on the bank of river Narmada. The people used to do agriculture, or people used to cultivate rice in this place, in the bank of the river Narmada, and the name of the place is north of the Vindhyas. Okay, so the people used to move from one place to another. This movement of the people enriches our culture and the tradition. Our culture and the tradition. Why do people travel nowadays? So actually here is a question. In our previous time, people used to travel. In the ancient time, people used to travel from the one place to another for their survival. So what happened? People used to start agriculture in the past at around 8,000 years back or ago. So if you look at the map of India, you can able to find Ganga. Okay, so in ancient time, the areas along the Ganga and its tributaries was also known as Magadha, which is lying on the state of Bihar, which I already teach you. And now, why do the people travel nowadays? And why do the people travel in earlier days? So the people travel from one place to another, okay, in search of food, So men and women moved in search of their livelihood. They also travel to escape from the natural disasters like a drought and the floods. Sometimes men merge in army, conquering the other lands. Besides, the merchants travel with the caravans or ship carrying valuable goods from one place to another. So they used to carry valuable goods from one place to another. So some people also travel in search of prey or in search of hunting. Okay, but nowadays people travel because of unemployment. Okay, people of the villages areas migrate towards the urban area. Why? Because today people also travel today, but in today's world people travel to find their livelihood in search of job. But in our ancient time, people used to travel from one place to another in search of food, to escape themselves from the droughts and the floods. Okay, to hunt animals. Okay, they used to go to the jungle. They used to collect the food items from the jungle. Okay, to cope up their life. Names of the land. Two of the words which we often use for our country are India and Bharat. The word India comes from Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The Iranis and the Greek who came through the northwest about 25 years ago and were familiar with ago with and were familiar with the Indus called it Indus or the Indus, and the land to the east of the river was called India. The name Bharat was used for the groups of the people who lived in the northwest and who are mentioned in the Rig Veda. The earliest composition in Sanskrit date about 3500 years ago. Later, it is used for the country. Okay, so what happened? Our country is known by the two words, that is India and India. Bharat. The word India comes from the Indus called Sindhu in Sanskrit. So the Iranis and the Greeks who came through the northwest in about 25 years ago called it as Indus or Indus, and the land of the east of the river was called India. And the name Bharat was used for groups of the people who lived in the northwest, and they were also mentioned in the Rig Veda. The earliest Rig Veda is the earliest composition in Sanskrit. Later, it was used for the country. Rig Veda is the oldest book. It is the Vedic book. There are 4 types of Vedas which we are going to learn in the next chapter. Okay, finding about the past. Okay, who find about the past? There are several ways of finding about the past. One is to search for and read books that were written long ago. These are called manuscript because they were written by hand. This comes from the Latin words manu, meaning hand. These were usually written on the palm leaves or on the special prepared bark of a tree known as a bridge, which grows in the Himalayas. Over the years, many manuscripts were eaten away by insects, some were destroyed, but many have survived, often preserved in the temple and the monasteries. These books dealt with all kinds of subjects, religious beliefs and the practices, the lives of the king, medicine and the science. Besides, there were the epic poems, plays. Many of these were written in Sanskrit, others were in the Prakrit, language used by the ordinary people, and Tamil. Okay, so finding out about the past. So one way through which we can find out about our past is reading book. The book which were written long ago. These books are called manuscript. Why manuscript? Because the word manu, in Latin the word manu means hand. Okay, so the script which were written by hand is known as manuscripts. So there are so many manuscripts. They were written on the palm leaves or on the special prepared bark of a tree. Okay, the books dealt with this type of the books dealt with the subject like religious beliefs and practice of our ancient time, the lives of the king and the queen, medicines and the science. Besides, there were epics and the poems, plays as well. So this is manuscript. Manuscript means the script which is written by the hand. We can also study inscription. They are written on relatively hard surface such as the stones or metal. Sometimes the king got their orders inscribed so that the people could see, read and obey them. There are other kinds of inscriptions such as well, where the man and the woman, including the kings and the queens, recorded what they did. For example, king often kept records of the victories in the battle. There were many other things that were made and used in the past. Those who study these objects are called archaeologists. They study the remains of the building made of stones and bricks, painting and sculptures. They also explore and excavate, dig under the surface of the earth to find tools, weapons, pots, plants, ornaments and coins. Some of these objects may be made of stone, other of the bone, baked clay or metal. Objects that are made of the hard, imperishable substances usually survive for a long time. Okay, so we discussed about the manuscript. Now inscription. What is inscription and the archaeologists? Let us see. So inscriptions are also our writings which was written relatively on the hard surface. okay, which was relatively written on the hard surface. So in the past, when the king wanted their orders inscribed so that the people could see, read and obey them, they used inscription for this purpose. There are other kinds of inscription as well, where the men and women, including kings and queens, recorded what they did. For example, record of the victories in the battles. King used to record their victories in a battle. So the inscription. So the question may arise, what were the subjects on which the books were written in the past? And which of these would you like to read? Let us see. The books which are written in the past usually dealt with all kinds of subjects such as religious beliefs and practices, the lives of the kings, medicines, science. It was also epic poem play. But everything which is written by the hand is known as the manuscript, but the written by the hand on the palm trees. But the something which is written in the hard surface is known as the manuscripts. It's known as manuscripts. So another question may come: why do you think ordinary men and women did not generally keep records of what they did? The ordinary men and women did not generally keep records of what they did because they weren't doing any notable work. They lived their ordinary life, and also they did not know about reading and writing. And the question may also arise, what is the major difference between the manuscripts and inscription? So the manuscripts are written by hand, which were usually written on the palm leaf or on the specially prepared bark of a tree, while inscriptions were engraved either on the hard surface such as the stones and metals. Next, let us see. Archaeologists also look for a bone of animals, birds and the fish to find out what people ate in the past. Plants remains survive far more rarely. If seeds of grain or the pieces of the wood have been burnt, they survive in the charred form. And the historians, that is the scholar who study the past, often use the word source to refer to the information found from manuscript, inscriptions and archaeology. Once sources are found, learning about the past becomes an adventure as we reconstruct it bit by bit. So historians and archaeologists are like detectives who use all these sources like clues to find out about the history. So who tell us about the history? They were either archaeologists or historians. Let me tell you who are archaeologists. An archaeologist is a person who studies the remains of the building made of stones and the bricks, paintings and sculpture. They also explore and excavate to find tools, weapons, pots, pans, ornaments and coins. They also look for the bones of animals, birds and the fish to find out what people ate in the past. So the archaeologist is the person who used to study all the remains of the buildings, of the stones, painting and sculpture. But the historian used this source as information, whatever found by the archaeologist, manuscripts and inscription. Okay, one source were found, learning about the past between an adventure. It becomes an adventure. So the historian and archaeologists are like a detectives who used to tell us these sources like clue to find out about our past. Okay, so let us see one past or many. Did you notice the title of this book, Our Past? We have used the word past in the plural to draw the attention to the fact that the past was differed from the different groups of people. For example, the lives of herders and the farmers were different from those of the kings and the queens. The lives of the merchants were different from those of the craftsmen and so on. Also, as it's true even today, people followed the different practices and the customs in the different parts of the country. For example, today, most of the people live in the Andaman Island, get their own food by fishing, hunting, and collecting forest produce. By contrast, most people living in the cities depend on other for supplies of the food. Difference such as that exist in the past as well. Okay, so the title of the book is Our Past. The word used there, past, is in the plural form, and it is used to draw the attention to the fact that the past was different for the different groups of people. There were the farmers, herders, the king and the queen. The lives of the kings and the queens were totally different from the lives of the merchants and the agriculturist and the craft person, so on and so forth. It is even true today also, because people followed a different types of customs and the practices in today's generation as well. Generally, the ordinary men such as the hunting, fishing, flock gatherers, farmers or herders did not keep record of what they did, because they weren't doing any notable work also, or they did not know about reading and writing as well. While archaeology helps us to find out their lives, there is much that remains unknown. Okay. So what do date means? So date is very, very important in history. Okay, I will just explain you what do the date means. The years are counted from the date to the birth of Jesus Christ, the founder of the Christianity. Jesus Christ is the founder of Christianity. All the dates before the birth of the Christ are counted backward and usually have a letter BC. That means BC means before Christ added on. In this book, we will refer to dates going back from the present using 2000 as our straight point. 2000 means 2000 years after the birth of Christ. Okay, the word before the birth of Christ, it was denoted by the BC. Okay, and after 2000, the year 2000, we use 2000 as our starting point. 2000 means 2000 years after the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, I think it will help to understand the chapter. For example, if you are getting through some problem, you can ask me question through WhatsApp, or either you call me. So this is the explanation for the first chapter. I explained this chapter in very brief. Okay, we have much to know, so I will give you a short summary of this chapter in my next video. So till then, try to understand the chapter, go through the book and try to find out the question answer. Thank you very much.